In the quaint town of Willowbrook, life thrived in a delicate balance. Nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, it drew visitors with its charming streets and friendly faces. But behind the picturesque facade, darkness lurked just beneath. A web of power and corruption lay hidden, and at the center of it all was Judge Harold Ainsworth, a man whose esteemed reputation cloaked unspeakable secrets. Little did the townsfolk know, a storm was about to brew, one that began with 6-year-old Lucy Anderson, an innocent girl whose world was shattered the day her father, John Anderson, a beloved local journalist, was found dead under mysterious circumstances. The official report cited an accidental death, but the whispers of murder danced through the town like shadows at dusk. Lucy adored her father, who told her stories of adventure and bravery, igniting her imagination. He promised her that justice would always prevail under the watchful eyes of the law. So, when the news surrounding his death turned grim, Lucy found herself clinging to that promise, convinced that someone must pay for the loss she felt so deeply. The following weeks brought tumultuous nights, haunted by nightmares of the masked figure that shadowed Lucy's dreams. None other than Judge Harold Ainsworth himself. In her young mind, the judge embodied the essence of evil. He had presided over her father's case with an indifference that felt agonizingly wrong. With steely simplicity, each time Lucy appeared in court with her mother, she imagined confronting him, a tiny warrior battling the tyrant who had stolen her father. But the truth ran deeper. Judge Ainsworth was not the true villain. The mastermind behind John Anderson's death was none other than his own brother, Jonathan Anderson, a cunning lawyer who had often lived in his sibling's shadow, simmering with envy and greed. In his heart, Jonathan believed that, through his brother's demise, he could seize the family property that John inherited from their late father, a sprawling estate laden with wealth and secrets. One fateful evening, Lucy, fueled by the desire for vengeance, crept through the streets. She'd overheard snippets of conversations, hints dropped from fearful townsfolk about Judge Ainsworth being involved. As dusk fell, cloaked in darkness, she found herself drawn to the town courthouse where the judge worked late into the nights, drawn by both fear and an inexplicable pull toward the truth. Steeling herself with courage, Lucy approached the courthouse, peeking through the grimy windows. Inside, Judge Ainsworth sat hunched over papers, scribbling notes. For a moment, doubt washed over her. What if she was wrong? What if he was just an innocent man, as her mother often told her? But the memories flooded back. Her father's lifeless eyes, the glares of contempt that enveloped the courtroom. No, she couldn't let it go. It was time to confront the specter that haunted her days. Just then, while Lucy lingered in the shadows, Jonathan appeared at the edge of her vision, entering the courthouse with a sly grin. Little did Lucy know, he had been scheming with the judge all along, using him as a pawn to infiltrate her father's life, while keeping his nefarious plans hidden beneath the guise of familial love. With a spark of determination ignited within her, Lucy snuck into the building, eyes wide as she rummaged through the atmosphere filled with tension and secrecy. She tiptoed through the marble hallways, her heart racing. Following Jonathan into Judge Ainsworth's private chambers, she attempted to stifle her breath amid the suffocating fear. Within those walls, she hid behind a large, ornate curtain, peering out just as Jonathan spoke with the judge. "It's all falling perfectly into place, Harold. They believe the accident theory, and Lucy is too naive to realize what's really going on. The girl is innocent, a mere bystander in our game," Judge Ainsworth replied, his voice steady and cold. "We must ensure she remains in the dark. The moment she learns the truth, all our plans will unravel. Keep an eye on her, Jonathan. We cannot afford any mistakes." Lucy's heart dropped. Mistakes? What game were they playing? Rage boiled within her, flushing out the fear that had held her captive for too long. Jonathan was a true villain, manipulating the system and using the judge like a marionette to execute his wicked desires. Timorously, she stepped back, bumping against a shelf laden with dusty law books. The noise echoed, causing both men to stop in their tracks. Lucy's heart raced as she ducked deeper into the shadows, a mix of terror and wrath igniting her spirit. "Did you hear that?" Ainsworth's voice sliced through the air. "Must be the wind," Jonathan replied, though unease creased his brow. In that moment of distraction, Lucy grasped the edge of the curtain and flung it aside, stepping forward. "You killed my dad, didn't you?" she demanded, surprising both men with her pluckiness. The judge and her uncle exchanged startled glances. "What are you talking about, Lucy?" Jonathan managed, feigning concern. "Don't lie," she shouted defiantly. "You think I don't know? It was you. You wanted his property." Lucy pointed an accusative finger at Jonathan, her tiny stature belied by the fire in her belly. A sinister smile spread across Jonathan's face, and he leaned closer to the girl, his voice dripping with malice. Lucy, dear, you should know it's not safe to play with fire. Why don't I help you forget all of this?" Just as Jonathan moved to grab her, Jack, a brave young man secretly infatuated with Lucy, burst through the door. A fellow townsperson who had been suspicious of the courthouse dealings, Jack had been lurking outside, hoping to lend Lucy support. "Get away from her," Jack shouted defiantly, stepping between Lucy and Jonathan. Without hesitation, he moved to push the villain back. Jonathan sneered. "And what are you going to do? You think you're a hero, boy. I may be just a kid, but I know right from wrong," Jack exclaimed. "You're not hurting her." Ainsworth moved as well, a sense of urgency creeping into his demeanor. "Enough," he bellowed, his authoritative tone breaking the fragile tension in the room. "We cannot afford to be discovered. Leave, Jonathan, I'll handle this." In a flash of confusion, Jack grabbed Lucy's hand, tugging her back toward the door. "Let's go." "Not so fast." Jonathan leaped forward, a glimmer of desperation crossing his features. But the two kids managed to slip past him, sprinting down the hall and bursting out into the night. "Wow, that was close," Jack panted, glancing at Lucy. "We need to tell anyone who will listen." As the pair darted to safety under the cover of night, Lucy's determination flared. "No, we'll expose them ourselves. We can't let them get away with this." With newfound purpose, they devised a plan. Realizing their surroundings and the allies they could muster, Lucy and Jack enlisted the help of their friends, a ragtag group committed to unveiling the truth. Emma, the daughter of the town sheriff, Samuel, a smart young inventor, and Olivia, the fastest runner in school. Together they forged a plan to gather evidence against Judge Ainsworth and Jonathan, hoping to connect the dots linking them to her father's death. For days, Lucy and her friends pursued the bitter trail, leaving no stone unturned. They explored old records, piecing together the timeline surrounding her father's death. They ventured into forgotten places, the town archives, the cemetery, and secret places where whispers of rebellion lingered. With Samuel's ingenuity, they rigged devices to record conversations at the courthouse, allowing them to uncover incriminating evidence against Jonathan and the judge. Amidst their quest, they learned how deeply ensnared the judge was within Jonathan's entanglements. "He thinks he's a law," Emma said hollowly. "But underneath, he's just a pawn in Jonathan's scheme. His greed fuels everything." One moonlit night, with their evidence rapidly building, the group gathered at Lucy's home, the girls whispering excitedly and making plans for the next day. They felt electric, intoxicated by the potential of uncovering the truth. As they retold the stories, however, Jack grew silent, watching Lucy as she passionately navigated their plans, his heart swelling with admiration. But Jonathan had not been idle, lurking in the shadows, consuming all their moves. He had caught wind of their investigations through Ainsworth's underlings. As Lucy's confidence soared, the plan was about to take a dark turn. One evening, gathered in the old archives of the town, Lucy suddenly sensed something was off. The flickering candles cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the dim light seemed to bear witness to their secrets. "Do you guys hear that?" she asked nervously, her pulse quickening. "What is it?" Olivia asked, trying to remain calm. "Voices. Someone is nearby," Lucy whispered, pressing her ear against the door. Just then, the door swung open with a crash, revealing Jonathan, his eyes reflecting a malevolent glow in the dim light. "Well, well, well, isn't this a little surprise? You kids have been meddling in matters far beyond your understanding." Jack stood protectively in front of Lucy. "You'll never win. We know what you've done." Jonathan chuckled, the sound sending shivers through Lucy. "Know what I've done? Oh, darling, it's not just my hands that are dirty." He raised his voice, summoning shadows. "I assure you, a judge is always the one holding the scales. And we both know how that trial will end." Just as he lunged forward, Jack acted swiftly, pulling Lucy behind him. "Run," he yelled, pushing her toward the back exit. The group scattered, dashing through the old library stacks filled with dusty books, hearts pounding. They heard Jonathan's footsteps echoing behind them as he shouted threats. "You think you can escape me? Foolish children." In a flash, Lucy discovered an open window at the back of the room. "Over here! This way!" she shouted, scrambling toward the exit and pulling her friends through the narrow opening just as Jonathan reached the main room. "You won't get away," he bellowed, rattling the door fiercely. "You think the judge will let you run free after this?" But the group pressed forward, rushing down the alley behind the archives. Jack took the lead, his instincts guiding them through the winding streets of Willowbrook, alive with desperation and fear. "Split up," Lucy called, urgency gripping them. "Meet back at the park in an hour. We'll regroup and come up with a plan." As the group dispersed, Lucy raced towards a nearby woods where she often played as a child, her heart in her throat. She found solace in the tall trees, seeking a hidden spot she could escape to while gathering her thoughts. Minutes felt like hours, and a sense of dread lingered in the air. In the midst of hiding, Lucy reflected on her father and the promise she made to uncover the truth and deliver justice, no matter how twisted the journey became. Meanwhile, Jonathan, realizing they had slipped through his fingers, rushed back to the courthouse. He needed Judge Ainsworth to ensure that their plans would stay safeguarded, incapable of being exposed by a group of children. "We must act now," he insisted. That night, as the moon hung high, Lucy reunited with her friends in the park, each of them weighed down by fear yet buoyed by determination. "I think we need to confront the judge one last time," Lucy proposed. "We need to gather every piece of evidence we can find and deliver it to the authorities. We need solid proof. What if we're wrong? What if he's just as bad as Jonathan?" Jack questioned, his brow furrowed. "No, I feel it in my bones that this is the only chance we have," she replied with conviction. "There's got to be something we missed." Early the next morning, they embarked upon their final mission to the courthouse, hearts racing as they approached. Lucy led the group, determination in her steps, and they slipped into the building with caution. "Let's check Ainsworth's office. Maybe we can find something," Emma whispered, her eyes darting around. Jack stayed vigilant, hoping they could uncover the judge's involvement without being detected. As they crept into a side hallway, Lucy pushed the door open and found herself in Judge Ainsworth's plush office, lined with prestigious awards and commendations, an air of arrogance lingering in every corner. "Look for files. Anything that looks related," Lucy instructed as the group fanned out in search of incriminating evidence. Just then, Jack noticed a locked drawer in the desk. "Over here," he called, testing the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Samuel's lock-picking skills might come in handy," Emma suggested, casting a hopeful glance at their brilliant engineer. "Can you pick it, Sam?" Samuel nodded, his mind working rapidly. "I'll give it a shot." After struggling for a moment, a satisfying click broke the silence, and the drawer swung open with a soft creak. Inside lay stacks of papers, case files, and there, buried among them, was a sealed envelope with the family Crest Underwater Estate. Holding it up, Lucy felt the pulse of victory. This could be what we need. Just then, footsteps echoed outside the office door, jolting them upright. Panic ensued as Lucy felt her heart race. It was Judge Ainsworth. "Quick," she whispered. "Hide!" The kids scrambled for cover, ducking behind the desk, their breath held tight as the door creaked open. Moments later, Ainsworth stepped inside, murmuring to himself as he reviewed files. Those meddling children have no idea what they're getting themselves into. With Jonathan, we'll take control again. No one will stand in our way. Jack peered at Lucy, urging silence with urgency. The atmosphere thickened as Jonathan appeared at the doorway, having followed Ainsworth. Glancing around, Jonathan smirked, presenting an unsettling alliance. "I suggest we deal with this now, Judge. The longer we wait, the higher the risk that they'll discover everything." With palpable fear, Lucy clenched the envelope, her mind racing. She knew she had to act quickly. Temptation gripped her. A rush of bravery surged forth. "We have to record this," she whispered to Jack, while inching her phone out of her pocket. As Jonathan and Ainsworth exchanged words, the tension hung heavy in the air. "Leave the kids sweeping under the rug," Jonathan smirked, tossing aside the threat. But Jack recognized the flicker of cowardice in Ainsworth's resolute facade. "Continue bluffing. We're professionals at covering tracks. You are forgetting. We control the law. After all." Just then Lucy hit record. "The truth shall prevail," she declared, stepping from her hiding spot. "You're not getting away with this." Both men spun around, their jaw dropping as they saw Lucy confronting them. "You," Ainsworth hissed, eyes wide in disbelief. "You should have stayed hidden. Leave my father's memory out of your hands." Lucy stood firm, raising her phone like a weapon. "You'll pay for what you've done." In that moment of vulnerability, Jonathan lunged for her, but Jack intercepted him, pushing Lucy out of harm's way. "Get out. We have to go," he yelled as they stumbled backward. "Stop them," Judge Ainsworth bellowed. Panic ensued as Jonathan darted toward them, a hunter now unleashed. The group scrambled for the door, hearts pounding with adrenaline. Lucy held her breath, racing to the exit as Jack used his small frame to block Jonathan's path. The movement led to chaos, flipping a pile of papers that scattered like leaves in the wind. "Move!" Lucy shouted as they dashed into the open hallway, adrenaline surging through their veins. Without thinking, they bolted down the staircase, the sound of footsteps getting closer. Bursting through the back exit, they found themselves at the courtyard just as the sun started to rise. "This way," Emma pointed, leading them toward the park. As they took refuge behind a large oak tree, they could hear Jonathan's frustrated shouts from the courthouse. "They can't escape. Do whatever it takes to catch them. Should we call the police?" Samuel suggested, but Lucy shook her head. "No, we have the evidence now. We need to confront the judge publicly. It's our only chance," she declared. Reinforced by newfound determination, they moved into the town square, where early risers gathered for their morning routines. "Let's show them," Lucy called out, hoisting the envelope high for all to see. "Judge Ainsworth is corrupt," Jack shouted, rallying their friends. The townsfolk turned to look, eyes of confusion morphing to disbelief. As Lucy began to recount the tale, the events of the past few days unfolded in urgency. "He's working with my uncle," she declared, her voice rising above the crowd. "They killed my father." Gasps filled the gathering, and murmurs echoed through the square. Jonathan, realizing what was happening, stepped forward, attempting to interject. "Stop this nonsense. Kids don't understand what they're talking about." But Lucy pressed on, eyes ablaze with emotion. "He wants our family's property, and Judge Ainsworth is part of this plan." At that moment, Judge Ainsworth emerged from the courthouse, a frown etched on his face. "Where's the evidence?" Hearsay won't stand in court, he barked, steadfastly believing his position would save him. But before anyone could respond, Jack lunged forward, holding up the phone. We recorded everything, he proclaimed. Everything you've said about stealing her father's money, your plans. The crowd gasped, eyes widening in anticipation. Judge Ainsworth faltered. That's impossible. You children have nothing. Let's put it to the test, cried Emma, her voice amplifying with courage. Who stands in favor of Lucy Anderson, a child fighting for justice against adults corrupting our town? A moment of silence settled, as townsfolk began to rally around Lucy, fueled by injustice. We believe you, someone shouted. Justice for Lucy. The murmurs of dissent turned to shouts, as townsfolk began to press close to the courthouse steps, demanding answers. Ainsworth's mask of authority began to crumble, revealing cracks of desperation beneath. As tensions buzzed in the air, Jonathan's facade transformed into outright fury. You think you can turn this around? You're just kids. What do you know about power and respect? Ignoring him, Lucy marched forward, tears of pain mixing with a newfound resolve. What do you know about justice? You're hiding behind lies. With the attention of the crowd ablaze, Judge Ainsworth felt the weight of the accusations bearing down upon him. It's all fabricated, he shouted. You children don't know the law. You can't take this from me. In that instant, the officer who had arrived in time with the town authorities intervened. What's going on here? He demanded, eyeing the gathering crowd. I want to press charges, Lucy shouted, emboldened and strong. Against Judge Ainsworth and my uncle. They know more than they're letting on. The officer wasted no time, moving to investigate. Show me the evidence. Thrumming with urgency, Jack stepped forward, playing the recording, showcasing the damning evidence that came to life within the throng of gathered neighbors and friends. Whispers washed over them as truths unfolded, revealing the extent of Jonathan's treachery and the judge's complicity. You're being arrested for conspiracy, the officer declared, his voice ringing clear. You're under arrest, Ainsworth. You can't escape. Justice will prevail. Caught in the web of betrayal, Judge Ainsworth felt the walls closing in. This isn't what you think, he bellowed. You'll pay for this. And with that, the veneer shattered. Justice revealed itself, illuminating the darkness that had lingered for too long. With handcuffs now binding Judge Ainsworth, the crowd erupted in a surge of victory. Lucy breathed a sigh of relief, her heart steadying as she felt the collective support from her friends and neighbors. I'll find you, Dad, I promise, she whispered to the winds, sending her father's spirit the strength he needed with each breath. As Jonathan was also apprehended, reeling from the betrayal of trust, Lucy took solace. In the aftermath, she may have lost her father, but she found allies who believed in her. Jack stood by her side, a friendship forged through battle, one that only grew stronger as they endured life's injustices together. And while justice may have taken time, it revealed the victims no longer alone, bound together by truth. A group of kids turned heroes in Willowbrook, sponsors of a brighter future, where shadows would not reign unchecked, and where Lucy would forever embody the spirit of her father's promise. Epilogue: A brave new beginning. In the months that followed the trial, Lucy's bravery inspired the town. The courtroom that had once echoed her father's empty memories became a place of healing as the community reunited around their shared goals. Lucy participated in town meetings, advocating for transparency and change, inspiring countless others to speak out against corruption. Jack remained her steadfast friend, and together they formed a youth council to uphold integrity, initiating a movement to ensure that no voice went unheard. The scars of the past lingered, but hope shone as brightly as the dawn. United by their experiences, the children influenced the town in profound ways, proving that even the smallest voices can cultivate change. Lucy would grow up to honor her father's memory, guided by justice and truth, knowing that real strength lies not only in hope, but in taking a stand against the darkness, together.